How's everybody doing? That's what I'm talking about. I'm glad you're here. Welcome to San Diego. Welcome to, I want to apologize for the weather today. It's a little chilly, but I hope that, I hope somehow we're gonna get through it. And I'm delighted to say just a couple of words. I would have been here to welcome you on Wednesday night, but it was the same night that I was giving my very first State of the City speech as the newly elected mayor of the city of San Diego. So I had a few things to do that night, but I just want to say again to Mr. Chairman, Governor Perry, members, I'm glad that you're here and welcome. I'm going to take just a couple of minutes and talk about my race that we just won here in San Diego, and perhaps there's a few things that we can utilize on that as we look at races across the country and in other states. And as somebody who was so very, very proud to have all of your help and support, it's something that we feel strongly about the coalition that we built, and the types of things that we did here in San Diego are things that we can replicate across the country. I think probably, as some of you know, when you think about San Diego, you think about the financial crisis that this city went through and was front and center for all the wrong reasons across the country about 10 years ago. Financial scandal, pension scandal, Securities and Exchange Commission indictments, no city credit rating. San Diego was in a mess. And I was one of those folks that got elected, and I was on the city council for a couple of years to help turn it around. And we did. It wasn't easy, but we did it by a strong program of reform, particularly financial reform. And over the last 6 years, as we moved together as San Diegans to fight for those reforms, we did a lot of things that the voters gave us the tools to do differently on initiatives that I authored and supported with some of my colleagues that did a couple of different things. At first, we gave ourselves the ability to have the private sector to come in and bid for city services for the city of San Diego. We hired an independent auditor to be part of our city structure. And of course, one of the biggest things that we did a landmark pension reform measure here in San Diego. That we got the signatures to do it, and we moved away to an unsustainable defined benefit program that politicians in San Diego had let get out of control into a fair and affordable 401k style system for our great city employees, who I have the privilege to work with every single year. So we're turning that around, but it did not come without a lot of hard work, without a lot of debate. But the work that we did on pension reform, ladies and gentlemen, was absolutely essential to the type of recovery that we're having here in San Diego. And I know as I look across this room, and we've had the opportunity to talk with some of you, that's an issue that is facing so many of us in other cities, not only across the country, but of course, a lot of states across the country. Just to give you an example, if we didn't change what we did here in San Diego with our pension reform, our pension payment was projected to balloon from $330 million, a 42% increase if we did not change that. We passed that reform, we did it, and we're going to save $1 billion with a B, $1 billion in San Diego over the next 30 years. So when I was elected mayor this past February, it wasn't an aberration. It was because we'd been doing a lot of hard work. And it really was that decade-long reform movement that we've been doing in San Diego that really helped say our message of change, our message of financial responsibility. It wasn't a Republican message, a Democrat message, an independent message. It was a common sense message for San Diegans. And as all of us know in this room, when we start talking about those issues that are common sense, as Republicans, we win. We win all across the country. And me standing here before you today, I think, is indicative of that. San Diego may not be the red city that many remember, if you were here back in the RNC convention from 20 years ago. We actually have our registration, our Republican registration in the city of San Diego is 26%. 26% Republican registration. And in fact, there are even more registered independents than there are Republicans. And we're changing that every single day, by the way, thanks to the work of our chairman, Tony Kavarik, who is here today. Mr. Chairman. So despite all of the work that we did, we certainly couldn't run just a kind of a cookie-cutter campaign. We had to speak directly to people, directly about results, directly about the reforms we were making. And my campaign really focused on what happens when we focus that message to serving neighborhoods and taxpayers and put it very, very clearly, the benefits we get versus the trajectory that we were on, with streets not getting paid, libraries being cut back, fire stations being browned out. That's what San Diego's recent past was. And so my message of stability, reform, and particular economic opportunity about getting people back to work, and particularly our small businesses, was a message that we found to be very, very successful. We talked about bringing opportunity to neighborhoods that had been neglected to far too long. And as I mentioned, when you have that registration disadvantage that you had, we also had the unenviable position of being really one of the largest races in the country at the time because it was a special election. So it was great that I had about $4.5 million spent against me from some of the government employee unions. We had their full attention. But even with that attention, my message was, it's not about union issues or not. It was about bringing common sense back to San Diego, and that is a message that our city employees, the unions can buy into, and our everyday citizens saying these are the benefits of the reforms that we made here in San Diego. And we took the message to every demographic. And in fact, as those of you have heard me when we were talking about when I was in Memphis, you don't change the message based upon who you talk to. I think we all know that, because our promise of opportunity, our promise of reform resonates with every single demographic, every single group, ladies and gentlemen, if we do it correctly. And I'll tell you, we focused in my campaign in that special election on communities that Republicans had traditionally surrendered and Democrats had taken for granted. We flipped that on its head. And so our team in our group, we went out there, and I was, in fact, the very first campaign ad that we ran in my race. It was a very inclusive ad, and it featured me speaking in Spanish to our Latino voters here in the city of San Diego. The very first ad that we ran. And we received overwhelming support, and we talked about reform in that ad. I talked about neighborhood services in that ad. I talked about giving San Diegans the opportunity to back to work, particularly in our small businesses, which are so incredibly important to our Latino community here in San Diego. It's a message that worked. And in fact, when we opened up our campaign office, we did it in the heart of southeastern San Diego, an African American and Latino community that we're very, very proud of here. We hired a wide variety of diverse, good, hard-working folks that believed in our message to go out there and do it every single day. And you know, many of those neighborhoods, they weren't used to seeing a Republican campaign. But we changed that. I'll never forget the day that the second day after we opened the office, a gentleman came up to me and he said he had never seen a Republican open a campaign office in that portion of San Diego. And I said, well, you have now. And we're going to change that as a party. And I'll never forget that 3 months after I had that conversation, very beginning of that election, and I was fortunate enough with your help and with your support that I got elected, and strong support from that community where our office was. I chose to become the first mayor to host my swearing in and my oath of office right there in southeastern San Diego at a community center about 2 blocks from where our campaign office was. We were sending a very strong message about what we're doing in San Diego and being inclusive. And I tell you, these are all areas of getting that message out that our party is investing in and that I'm so very, very proud of. And I can tell you from experience, and I wouldn't be here today, it's working. The programs that we're doing, that the RNC is invested in, ladies and gentlemen, they're working. They're having real results as we're talking to people about getting back on track and making the right choice to move our cities forward and indeed our countries forward. So I was very, very proud of the great effort that we did. And as I've said before, I've been on the job for about 10 months now. There's nothing else I'd rather be doing, because to be in the opportunity of one of the largest cities in the country, I think I have an obligation to demonstrate how we do things right and how we make sure that people feel part of being included as we make some of these changes. Just a couple things that we're proud of, and I talked a little bit about it in my speech the other night, my State of the City speech. We've launched a new program called San Diego Works, where our city is in charge, and particularly our employees, of coming up with creative ideas on how we do things better and save money. And guess what? If you do it, and we actually save the dollars, you get rewarded with a financial incentive, just like they do in the private sector. Imagine that, bringing that type of philosophy into city government. We created a new department that actually does performance and analytics, so we measure what we're doing, and people have a clear indication about the services that we should be doing. And we've created new after-school programs, and I talked a lot about that as a father of 2 children in public school. I think all of us know how incredibly important that ladder to success is. It begins and ends with education. So we're doing some very, very creative things here in the city of San Diego in terms of what we're doing with our young kids. One of the other things that I think gives us the advantage here in San Diego, and things I talk about a lot, is the competitive advantage that we have from world-class companies, world-class research institutes, as we've mapping the human genome, providing the science that helped with one of the vaccines for Ebola, getting that message out that opportunity starts here. And when we have that creativity, we have the ability to generate jobs, put people back to work. And it does it if you're not afraid to harness that creative spirit. But yet one of the things, and I talked about it this week, is that many San Diegans don't have that opportunity to do it in terms of rising out of poverty and into prosperity. And beside what some believe, we're not going to solve that problem by tinkering around the edges. It's not going to be solved by the singular action of a mayor, a governor, or even a president. It's a complex challenge that touches all of us in every city across this country. And for us to actually do it and to help solve these issues, we have to do it collaboratively. So I talk about the San Diego success story, and I talk about giving all of our residents in every neighborhood the opportunity to succeed, to reach their dreams and potential. And so as we're doing things like Career Online High School, which we just launched this last week, allowing people to get their degree online for those people that are too busy because they're going to work, that's going to help. We have the job training programs that we're doing in skills with our community colleges and others. We feel very excited about that, but also a very clear message that when we need to have people rise up out of poverty and up that ladder, it starts by knowing what our measure of success should be. And something that I feel very, very strongly about is that our measure of success cannot be based on how many people have a slightly better paying, low-wage job. Our measure of success in this country must be how many have the opportunity to move into a better job. That's what our challenge is, and that defines us. And so I just want to say that that's the approach that I'm taking in San Diego. That's a message that I'm excited about, and so far seems to be working. 2016 is going to be a great year. It's going to be a great year for us in San Diego. It's going to be a great year for all of us across the country. And if there's one thing that I would say is one of the challenges that we have is, as we have the opportunity to talk to everybody, to say, let's get back, let's make sure we're doing that outreach. But it's not just about outreach, it's about being inclusive. You can't start an outreach program 3 months before the election. It has to be the fabric, it has to be the DNA of what we're doing as candidates, as a campaign, and as a party. That's something I'm proud of. That's something I'm proud of what our party is doing, ladies and gentlemen. Something I'm proud about all of you, again, for your help and support. I feel very honored and privileged to be the mayor of America's finest city. I couldn't have been here without your help and support. I'm looking forward to a great year ahead. Welcome to San Diego, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great weekend. Thank you very much.